All right, so tell us who you are and your work experience for a while.
I got you. So, my name's Zach Dodds. I'm born and raised Columbus, Ohio. And as far as I know, I was and still am the youngest CEO in Ohio. At least I'm currently not a CEO. I haven't been for about 7 years now.
Okay.
Seven, probably closer to eight. Um, but I had 18 years old. I started my job as corrections officer about 3 months out of high school. I was told I was the youngest one in Ohio. I don't know anybody that's, crazy enough to walk into that life at 18.
All right.
But yeah, man, when I was in high school, I was a C student, didn't really want to be there, didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of my life. Law enforcement was something that kind of stuck out to me. Through one way or another, I kind of just found corrections. I grew up pretty close to Orient, which is where CRC is. It was really in my backyard. And it was kind of just a no-brainer at the time, you know. And
What's
and
Orient like?
man, it's a small town, outside of Columbus. A lot of farmers, stuff like that. It's just a pretty small town. Not a whole lot goes on out there. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, really, that's the prison's kind of the center point of the town, really.
Do a lot of people get that job
I
from
wouldn't say
there?
a lot because I mean, there's so many people commute, into the city.
Okay.
But it's not uncommon to have that job in Orient for sure.
So you said London, right? We talked before. You were at what,
Yeah,
London level two?
I was in the city of London, but I was on the other side of State Route 56. So I was in Madison Correctional.
Oh yeah, my bad. See that?
Yep,
Okay, yeah, my bad. I
yep.
was getting them confused because there is a London, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I was
They
never there.
literally face each other.
That's why
Yep,
I was confused. Okay,
yep.
okay. All right, so that's a level two for anybody wondering. In Ohio, we got level one camp, level two
Mhm.
medium security, three close security, four max, five super max. I say that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep.
So if you want, go ahead and jump right into. I'm gonna just leave this to you right now. So go
Yeah.
ahead and start wherever you want with your situation.
So yeah, I mean, I graduated high school June 4th, 2016. I was 18 years old. My first day in the prison was August 2nd, if I remember right, of the same year. So at this time, man, I'm like 5'7" with boots on, 130 pounds, baby face. Did not belong in this life at all. But I was gun ho, I walked right in and I did it every day. Um,
Was you nervous?
I mean, at first there's definitely some nerves that come
I
along
think
with it. I ain't gonna
everybody
lie
is.
to you.
Everybody
And
is.
but weirdly enough, as time goes on, it you warm up to it, and it's I don't know, it's hard to explain. The days just kind of mesh together, and you kind of just get used to it.
Right.
But you get a reality check every now and then. I found a shank one day, and I was like, oh fuck, man, like,
Reminded
I
you.
mean, okay, this is real now.
Right.
And I mean, you definitely get those reality checks from time to time, but I got to do some cool stuff, seen some wild shit. And at the end of the day, man, I couldn't see myself being there long term. It wasn't what I wanted. And
How long
ultimately
was it?
what is it?
How long was it?
Um, man, start to finish, I want to say it was probably right around 8 months.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't anything crazy. It was pretty short lived. It didn't take long for me to figure out that that was not the life I wanted for myself.
Okay.
But but yeah, man, I don't regret it. Nobody will ever take it from me, that's for sure.
Right.
But
I just had another CO telling me that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's I don't regret it, but man, there was some nights some crazy shit happened.
Yeah, I was gonna say here in a second. Let's get into that. Pretty much to the background of you, I guess. I
Mhm,
just wanted to ask a couple things. Like,
mhm.
so you did graduate, right?
Yep.
And you went and you knew immediately you wanted to be a CO. Like, it crossed your mind. Did you get
So
the
I mean,
idea?
really, my ultimate goal was the sheriff's department. That's really where I wanted to be.
Law
But
enforcement.
I knew that a 4 year college was just not my thing. Not even community college. I wanted no part of a classroom.
Right.
And
Just got out of school.
yeah, I mean, being 18 years old, I got 3 years to kill. So I'm like, fuck it, why
Right.
not? And so that's kind of corrections really wasn't my goal, but it was like a stepping stone for me.
In your
And
mind, okay.
yeah, yeah. So
Now, is
and
there like a process for you guys? You just get like some training and you jump right in, or do you? I was
so
wondering.
really the way that I found corrections was actually at a job fair downtown, I believe in a state trooper kind of station. They had a job fair one day. I talked to a lady. She kind of talked me into coming down taking the test. And it was at the training facility right behind CRC.
Okay.
And that's where everybody goes for the whole state. And
Oh, okay.
and they have some like kind of like little apartments that you can stay in for a couple of weeks. For the people it's like up north or like the Cincinnati area. I
Okay.
lived right around the corner, so I commuted every day. Um,
Hey,
but
that's like CO is doing that is like inmates going to whether you call it reception.
yeah,
Every inmate goes to reception. Every CO goes to their reception. Okay, I
yep,
got you.
yes, sir. So yeah, I mean, I went down. They scheduled me to take the test. I went down and I took the test, and it wasn't a matter of, I scored this and you scored this, so I'm more likely to get an interview. The way I understand it, it was like you either pass or you fail. If you pass, you kind of go on a list, and facilities can call you from there. So I believe I got a call from CRC, Pickaway, London, and Madison. Madison called me first, set up an interview. I want to say a week or two went by. Man, there was like 40 of us that interviewed that day. I met the warden and everything. It was a really, really long process with the interview.
Now you're saying you didn't even know what facility you were going to be at.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just knew you were going to be a CO.
No, no. I purely at this point I had just taken the test and had set up an interview
Okay.
with the facility. So I wasn't hired at this point.
But I'm saying, do they let you pick your joint, or did they? You were waiting on them to tell you where you were going to be placed.
So they give you a list, kind of all of the prisons within the state, and then you can pick where you're willing to work or where you kind of want your application to go. And then from there, they can either choose to interview you or not. And it's kind of up to the facility at that
Yeah,
point, to hire you or not. Um,
that
so
makes sense.
I ended up going to Madison first. Um, and the interview was really long, like I said, and I didn't know how it was going to go. Honestly, I thought my age was and my size was going to affect me a lot. And ultimately, they called me and said that I was hired if I wanted it. And man, about 2 weeks later, I started training.
Sorry,
And
man. My bad,
you,
bro. Go ahead.
you're good, buddy.
I got to remember this for next time to go down in my basement. Maximus. All right, go ahead, man. Sorry.
You're good. But yeah, we went through the training process. You go over a lot of stuff in training. Um, Most of it is honestly probably death by PowerPoint. A lot of stuff related to gangs. Where to look in cells. Um,
STG.
yeah, I mean how to do count. Really just basic stuff. How to do how to do handcuffs through like a cuff port, stuff like that. Then we got
Physical, right, and all that.
we did a little bit of physical stuff. I mean it was like 3 or 4 days worth.
Did you have to get OC sprayed?
Yeah, that shit was not fun.
I bet. Yeah, I bet. I've
Um,
been sprayed before.
yeah, it's
Depends
it
on which one, though. I
yeah,
remember someone telling me like you're lucky they ain't got the other one or whatever because there's like
yeah,
a what? There's like two levels or something.
I think so. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
think I've seen 2 or 3 different cans.
right.
But basically, they kind of put you in a shed that's kind of like sealed off,
No
and
ventilation.
3 or 4 guys go in with gas mask, and they fill the shed, and they're like walk in one end, and like you got to hit like a punchy bag, stuff like that, and then you walk out the other end, and they really make sure that it gets in your lungs and everything,
Right.
and it really didn't hit my eyes. It got my lungs pretty bad. It burned like hell, and but yeah, that wasn't fun. We spent a couple days on a shooting range. That was pretty cool.
Now, was that
Um,
with what beanbag rounds, or you're using it because if you're on the truck perimeter, or what's that all about?
so we did, I think we shot a Glock and, just like a pump action shotgun.
Now, I'm
Um,
curious. Does this? I've always wanted to ask a CEO this.
mhm.
On that perimeter is the whole point. Don't they got a real firearm out there?
I never worked perimeter. I always
Okay.
got stuck in a unit. Every now and then I would get put on the yard. But the perimeter was one spot that I never worked.
I was just curious
Um,
because you see them driving, and I'm always wondering, like, what are they
I
gonna do if someone does run? Like, are they gonna
don't
shoot them,
quote me
chase
on it.
them? You know what I mean?
Don't quote me on it, but I believe they carry lethal and
I
non-lethal.
think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, something will have to get figured out.
Yeah, that's I couldn't answer that question, but I believe they do carry both.
So now, what was your favorite position? I was gonna say I'll just go ahead and let you go ahead and if you want
Mhm.
story times, your favorite memorable things. But
Um,
what was you were mainly in a block?
I was mainly in a block, yeah. So at Madison, you had the A side and the B side. So the B side was all like open dorms, level one. Um, and
Okay,
it was pretty laid back over there. Not a whole lot went on. I mean, pool tables, flat screen in the day room, stuff like that.
that's cool.
Nothing crazy. Um, I was typically over there one, if I was lucky, maybe 2 days a week. I was still in my probationary period, so I didn't get to choose where I worked for the day. I got placed.
Okay,
Um, I spent most of my time on the A side. A side was a level three. And so the way that I understand it, the A side was a level two yard. And right before I got hired, they had transitioned to a level three yard.
okay,
So they had brought a bunch of guys in, um, and
of a
there was
different
kind of
caliber.
there was a big power struggle, for
I
who
bet.
ran what at first. And
Because it's more or less a level three opening up, and
yeah,
everyone who's been wondering, level threes are a little bit more political and more
yeah,
militant. So
for
I can
sure.
see exactly what you're saying.
Yep,
Everybody's trying to figure out, well, shit, this is more or less like we just opened up a new prison in a sense.
yep,
Like who's gonna be a part of what? I get that.
yep. And man, it was a madhouse for a little bit. Yeah, nothing too crazy. I mean, there wasn't too many fights, um, or anything like that.
Was
I
there a
will.
lot of STG stuff?
There was a decent bit, yeah, for sure.
Right,
Mainly, I mean, I want to say it was probably pretty even. I mean, there was a little bit of everything.
right,
Honestly, I would work so many units that it would be hard to say like who ran what. Because I
right.
really don't remember. I mean, there was so much shit. But
Are
yeah, I
these
mean,
big blocks?
if I remember right, I want to say they were right around 166
That's
guys
pretty
to a
average.
block.
Yeah, it's pretty
So
average.
two ranges.
Yeah,
Nothing. I mean, it was pretty open, so there was a lot of guys in it, but it didn't really feel congested. I mean, you could definitely
right.
like move around the day room and everything. It wasn't too bad. Um, but I will say, probably the craziest night I ever had. Nothing ever came of it, but it was Super Bowl Sunday, and I was just in a unit I was in pretty regularly. And if my memory serves me right, I believe this particular block was run by the Crips. Um,
Okay.
and it was Super Bowl Sunday. And if you remember, the year that Tom Brady was down like three touchdowns going into halftime. Um,
I don't follow football that much
okay,
anymore, but
so
I do remember some rowdy Super Bowl
yeah,
nights.
the Patriots. I want to say they were playing the Cardinals.
Okay.
And Tom Brady was getting whooped pretty bad going into halftime. There's a lot of gambling going on. They tell you to, pick and choose your battles, in training. And gambling was one of those things where it's like, if I seen a, flagrant out in the day room, I'd say, hey, man, like, we're not doing this shit,
Yeah. Trying to
But I mean,
force you
like,
to do your job.
right. Like, I mean, it was kind of, for me, it was one of those things that was like, if you have the courtesy to go do it yourself, you know, I don't see it as a big deal.
At
I mean,
least
hell,
don't have a big bag of commissary sitting
right.
under the bed, under the table. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
There's
mean,
different ways to go about that shit.
absolutely. I mean, I always I was a small dude, so I was never the guy that was like, motherfucking everybody, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. I couldn't do that shit. And so I always kind of just played the role like, man, if you respect me, I'll respect you. You know what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
so Super Bowl Sunday, I knew there was going to be a lot of gambling going on. And Tom Brady was getting whooped pretty bad going into halftime. Guys started paying their debt, before we locked down. And so Tom Brady comes back. Now guys want paid. They want their commissary back, plus some. They ain't coming off of it. And
Mm,
we're trying to lock down the day room, and I don't particularly remember who I was working with that day. I got thrown around with just about everybody. It was, two COs per block on the A
yeah.
side. And man, I remember we were trying to lock down the day room, and it was like they were face to face right there in the day room. Like, if you guys want to go, let's go,
Right.
And here I am in the middle of it. I'm like, oh shit, man.
Is
Like,
this some multiple inmates
it,
or
it
is it just
was
them two
it was two guys in particular standing in the day room.
having a disagreement?
But
Right.
there was like they weren't gonna fight alone. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
I
I
know how
mean,
it goes. Yeah.
like both sides were ready,
Right. See where
and
this is gonna go.
for me, the writing was on the wall. I was like, fuck, man, here we go. It's about to go down. And
Hmm.
luckily, we were kind of able to get some distance between them and kind of de-escalate the situation. And ultimately, we ended up getting the day room, locked down, and ended up getting counted, and nothing come of it. But that was kind of like an oh
Yeah,
shit
that's.
moment for me.
I
I
had you.
will
They had
say,
your adrenaline going on.
yeah, yeah. I
It's
mean, it
that
was,
feeling you get them butterflies before any fight or even just watching one or anything. You get like it's a natural human response. It's a fight or flight where you just, me, I have like out of body experiences. Like if I'm
right.
about to get into a fight, it almost feels like I'm on autopilot, but everybody's
Yeah,
different, but
yep.
weird.
Yeah, it was crazy to me though. There's in my experience, not a lot of guys, walking around on a gray shirt get this. Um, but the leader of the Crips, I'll leave him anonymous. I don't know if you necessarily want me talking about him, but
I know what you mean. I respect it.
yeah, I remember his name, remember his face to this day. But he came up to me when it was, in the middle of something, getting ready to go down. And he came up to me and he said, "Hey man, just so if something pops off right here." And he said, "I'll make sure you get to the door and get out of here." He's like, "You don't need to be a part of this, man."
Yeah,
And
that was cool.
you
So he
know, it
liked you. He was looking. People pick and choose certain COs that they feel
right,
like they don't have a huge issue with. Yep.
right. Yep. Yeah, there was and just to share another experience with the same guy, you know, I worked in this particular unit a lot. Um, Not every day, but I was in there, 2, 3 days a week. And I pretty well knew just about everybody in the pod where they were supposed to be.
Hmm.
So IDs really wasn't something I was concerned about. I mean, hell, I wouldn't want to walk around with an ID every day.
Right.
So it was just something that, I couldn't care less about really. And White Shirt came in, grilled me pretty hard over it. Being the rookie, guys aren't,
Hmm.
half of them ain't got IDs on.
Looking
And
for something. Yeah.
me and the guy that I was working with, he was bitted into the unit, if I believe. So he was in there every day. And we got grilled pretty hard over it. And
Right.
this particular inmate, when he found out we got grilled over it, he stood in the front of the podium when somebody would walk by without an ID on. He's like, "Hey man, put your fucking ID on. These guys don't need to be having this shit. Put your
Mm.
fucking ID on, have a little respect." And so that
Right.
that
Right.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, but
I got you. Yeah.
yeah.
Did they trip about people wearing t-shirts, or did you catch a lot of guys in no shirt in the day room?
No, that really wasn't a thing. I
No.
mean, being the rookie, I was kind of under a microscope a little bit. Um,
Right.
so I mean, I would get grilled over small shit. Like I didn't care about guys wearing hats in the day room.
That's
It goes
kind of what I
against
was getting at, the
it
dress
goes
code.
against
Yeah.
the rule. I mean, hell, I wore a hat every day. Like how the hell am I going to tell you to take a hat off
Right.
while I got one on
Yeah.
myself? You
Right. I
know,
know what you mean by
but
that.
at the same time, I would get grilled for it.
Hmm.
So it was, and then because I like just use a hat for example. I mean, guys would walk out on the day room, have their feet kicked up on a table, wearing a hat, just to see if you'll say anything, you
Hmm.
know, and and then they'll push back a little bit, but you
Yeah,
know,
that's
I
kind of normal.
I I uh I got a good piece of advice when I was in training. I had one training officer flat out telling me they were like, "Man, like you're too big or you're too little, to be, you know, talking to guys a certain way. They're like you kind of got to take a little bit of approach, leave the ball in their court. Hey man, this is the rule. We're either gonna do it, we're gonna not. I'll just write the ticket. And so when I first started, I had to be a little bit of a dick. I did a lot of paperwork, but it was like once I kind of showed that I wasn't scared to go that route, and do the paperwork, then it was like, hey, man, take your hat off. All right, see ya.
Yeah.
I got you.
Write a
You know,
ticket, you mean by paperwork? Some people
yeah,
might not know what that
yeah,
means.
yeah,
So it's more or less saying some people will not go a certain route because of A, they don't feel like doing the paperwork, or B, having inmates feeling like you're being petty and this and that. And that's when you said pick your battles. Some things are
right.
worth it, some things ain't. I know
Absolutely.
exactly what you mean, yeah.
Yep.
So you did you ever work the yard at all?
Man, I worked a little bit of it on like training, this and that. There was a couple of days that I worked the yard. It wasn't particularly my favorite. Most of the time that I spent there was in the middle of winter. Um,
Okay.
so
Yeah, hell no.
I
You guys
mean, the
have a
dorms
guard
were cold
shack?
enough. What is it?
A guard shack?
Nah,
Oh, they didn't have them little wooden boxes.
nah.
Okay.
Nope.
What about bikes and golf carts, bikes, or gators?
There was a couple of gators. There was a handful of golf carts.
Okay.
There wasn't any bikes that I know about. But yeah, there was typically, to get out of the wind and everything. The yard officers would typically take a golf cart and then back it into like the door of two units, and they would
Yeah,
just kind of just sit there and wait for a call. That was typically where they would hang out.
I've seen that a lot. Yeah, especially in some bigger places I've been where they got multiple vehicles because they were really big. Richland, Noble, them are two really big places that you don't really want to walk everywhere. See, I've never been to Madison, so I can't even visualize it.
Right.
And I'm gonna be doing these, finishing these videos on each prison, and eventually I'm gonna get to the ones that I've never been to, and I'm gonna need
Right.
people like you to like tell me some
Yeah.
things, visualize, when that day
Mhm.
comes.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
so we want to more or less talk about. I'm trying to think where we should go with this. So what I'm curious, what ended up happening? Why you chose where the time you wasn't a CO no more? Like what how that all come about?
So like, what led to me ultimately leaving?
Yeah.
Um, Man, honestly, it was I knew, after a handful of months, I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do. I went from being, a high school kid that was hanging out with his buddies on the weekend, doing this and that, to working, second shift, a lot of the time getting froze. I'd go in on
Mm,
second, roll call would be at 1:30. There was a lot of nights I didn't leave till 6 o'clock in the morning. 8 hours later, I got to be
right.
back. So that shit gets old pretty quick. Working every holiday, every weekend. I mean,
Yeah.
my days off, they call them good days because they're really not weekends. My good days were Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's like Monday is my Friday.
Right.
And then it's
Yeah,
like
that's
3 days
hard.
a
I can
week.
see why.
Yeah. And
Especially.
after a while, man, it started beating me up. And,
Yeah.
really, it kind of got to the point to where, when I was at work, it wasn't too bad. I mean, I would get off work and mentally I would be tired. Like physically, I'm not too bad, but like, your mind just, it carries so much shit, over an 8 hour
Mhm.
day that like when you get home, it's hard to unplug.
Now something
And,
I always go ahead. I'll wait till you're done. Go ahead.
and then like the weekend would roll around, man, and like mentally you're just so drained that you don't want to do shit. And then you're right back into it. And it was hard to enjoy not being at work. And long term, I just didn't see it getting any better. And I knew that that just wasn't the life that I wanted to live. And ultimately, it resulted into me resigning. Yep.
That takes me into kind of exactly where I was going. Was is it? I've always wanted to ask you, CO, this. Is it almost like the same? I wonder if you guys feel that same paranoid feeling that we've. Well, I can speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure all inmates that you feel where. So okay, so you guys go home every night and then come
Mhm.
back, but we
Yep.
do a certain amount of time and then we go home. And I'll never forget the feeling of how weird it was out here, almost like a dreamland or like it wasn't real. And I went from being so paranoid with my head on a swivel to walking around in a store and everybody's acting normal. So, like for a CO, do you get like a certain feeling like you got to dial yourself up to go in and then unwind yourself to leave? Are you sitting at home on the couch going, man, just an hour ago, I was just surrounded by 160 hardened convicts? You know,
It,
big swole dudes with face tats and gangs and shit like that. Does it hit you like that, or
it is. It's definitely to an extent for sure. Yeah,
that's kind of what I was wondering.
it's that mentality is hard to turn off when you leave.
Right.
It's like there was a lot of nights, I would go out, with my buddies and we would just go get dinner. Um, on one of my days off, and it was like, they teach you in your training and everything. Always know a way out. Always know where your doors are and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Always be facing a door, head on a swivel. And it was like, man, I'm in the middle of, like a Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm surrounded by people. It's, I'm not. There's nothing going on. Like I'm not in any danger. And but it's hard to go. All right, like where's the door? Like do I have like an accessible exit? Like
Mm-hmm.
who's walking around? But this and that. It is very, very, very hard to turn off.
Yep.
Man, to this day, I have a hard time walking past the door and not making sure it's closed. I mean, it's very hard to turn off. Very.
Okay, I could see that. It makes sense. That's like us sitting. A lot of times we'll get used to wanting like a wall to our back. Like you don't want no one
Yeah.
to access to just come up to you. If you have the chance to sit in the chow hall in that corner, that's why they're always taken up. People don't realize like it's always the one on the edge all open because 9 times out of 10 when someone grabs their tray, they want to be able to feel closed off. Like, okay, I got my brother right here and I got the wall right here, and then someone else is going to sit down next to me and they're going to be hanging out in the aisle. But that's like the ideal seat because
Yep.
if something happens, no one could just run up and steal on you. And that's happened to me a couple times. But like, I see what you're saying. So it's a different
Yeah.
point of view. That's exactly why I wanted to do this
Yeah.
is to bring COs. I'm going to try to get some of you, you guys either COs now, ex COs, your point of view. And then I'm also going to put inmates on, and then I'm also going to even maybe put family of inmates on and get their
Mhm.
point of view. Like, how does it feel that your son's in prison, or you know what I mean? Just
Right. Yeah, that'd be cool.
a little bit of a different angle. So how long ago was this? Like, how long has it been since you've been a CO?
Um, Man, so I left in 2017. So man, that's been a while. It's been
Oh, you
about
were
8 years.
done in 17. I went to prison in 17. Right, right.
Yeah, I started in the summer of 16, and then I
Okay.
ended up leaving um probably in the spring, maybe, yeah, probably early spring of 17.
It's some decent money, right? You ain't gotta like say a real number if you don't want to, but I always wonder, do they make decent money through the state or not through CCA? Not really. Okay.
Nah, I will tell you this. If I could go back, that is like it ain't worth it for the money.
Right. Okay. I was
Yeah.
wondering
Now
that.
don't get me wrong, 18 years old living at home, I thought I was a rich man.
Sorry, babe.
Um, Now a little bit
Sorry.
older, a little bit wiser,
Yeah,
not
now that
not
I
a
see what
not
you
a
mean.
chance.
Because now
Not a
you're a
chance.
little bit older. But when you said this, actually, man, I'm gonna title it that. Like, if you don't care, I mean, you made that like a main point of your point of getting across. Youngest CO in Ohio. Like, you came straight. Well, something along that. I ain't gonna like
Yeah,
make it. You know what I mean? But the way
right.
you presented it, I got to thinking like, if that's accurate, that's crazy because you're right. Most people might wait like a year or two, but if you were 18 coming out of school and you were shooting straight down to the damn recruiting thing, then you probably very much was. You know what I mean?
I took the test while I was in high school.
Right. Yeah. See,
Yeah,
that's different. You don't
yeah.
see a lot.
There
I've seen
was
some young COs, but I don't think they were 18.
there was one other guy. Want to say he was at Madison. He might have been at Pickaway. He was the son of one of the training officers. He was 19 when he started. But the day that I got my badge made at Madison, the guy that was doing my training, he said, "You are officially the youngest guy that I have ever seen come through here."
He's probably did it for years, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I mean, this guy was, probably old enough to be my dad,
Right.
and
So you
so,
were 18 in how many months?
what is it?
You were 18 and how many months old?
Probably, man, I turned 18 November 28th, and then I started in August, so I was pretty close to 19.
Right, but
Um,
still, you were. Yeah, I got you.
yeah, 19
Yeah.
months.
Now, was there a lot of females there? We just had a CO on a live session. It was me, a CO I was at Trumbull Walls with, which
Hmm.
was pretty awkward, but we talked for a while, and then now it don't feel as awkward. Me, him, a female who's been at Lake Erie and NEOCC. We all three had like a little live session, and he literally came out of nowhere and just said, "I'm not gonna lie, I just don't really like working with female COs." And she was like, "Oh, really?" And then it was kind of just awkward. I just sat back and let them talk, but he wasn't really trying to be rude. It's just that's his old
Hmm.
school mentality of it, and she
Right,
was understanding of it, and he had his reasons. But
right.
now I'm curious to see how you'll piggyback off that. Like, how
Yeah,
do you
I
feel
mean,
about that?
it was definitely male dominant for sure,
Right.
as far as the COs go. But there was definitely a handful of female COs, especially on second. Um, I personally, I never had any issue with working
It
with them.
didn't bother you or feel
No,
okay.
no, it was. But at the same time, I mean, I just about every unit I went, they always paired me with somebody who had like been there for a while. I mean, I'm the new guy.
They wanted you right, okay.
Right, yeah, so wherever I was going, I was paired with that person purely to be built up. So
Hmm.
I really it never really mattered who I was with. I mean I could see why somebody would probably hold that opinion,
Right.
of not wanting to work with them. I mean I get it. Um
Especially early on, maybe.
yeah, I mean I'm probably gonna get some heat for this, but they definitely they would be a little more up to be a little more rude, about the way that they would speak to guys.
Hmm. I can see
And
that.
obviously, your job is always to de-escalate a situation. You want to make things easy as possible for everybody. And so sometimes that would work against you from time to
Hmm.
time. And so I can see why somebody would hold that opinion, but me myself, I never had an issue with it.
That's cool. I can see what you mean by that. Quick examples. We got that video from Lebanon was released. I've already posted it twice of body cam footage, and dude attacks him, but it all starts because of her purposely poking the bear. He's walking back to his cell, and she's following him, messing with him, messing with him. It's Christmas Day. His family wouldn't answer the phone, and she kept more or less saying, "Oh, poor you," and this and that, and then pushing it, pushing it. And finally, she goes, "You know what? Here's your Christmas present. Step out. I'm gonna shake you down." And he's like, "Why are you bothering me?" And then that's just how it all started. Was her projecting that onto him. It was like you could just feel the negativity, and I was
Yeah,
there. Now I didn't see that with my own eyes, but that lady was like that to everybody. But he gave her a reality check. Now I'm not sitting here saying, that's good he did that, but
right.
because he did assault them, he actually hurt the guy really bad, but he also hurt her. But my point I'm getting at is it didn't need to be that way because I don't think his intentions was to do that, but she flipped a switch in that dude. You see what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
did this to inmates in different blocks, and that
Right.
was the buildup. It was like
Yeah.
somebody was gonna do it eventually. Some
Yeah.
females feel like they got a point they got to make. Like
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know,
Yeah.
don't need to
Yeah.
be that way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, man, I mean, I knew walking in that the odds were against me, and so when I went in there, I tried every day to take no ego with me, and honestly, I felt like I had pretty good success at the job because I had that mentality when I walked
That's
in.
cool. What's that thing? What'd you say? I'm just curious. You said you're not very tall. And what's that thing people always say when people got Napoleon complex, when they're short, they get real
Yeah.
mean and fight a lot and they got a
Yep.
point to make and shit. There's some
Yep.
guys, most of the inmates do that. Like the
Yep.
shorter, stockier dudes that it seems like they're like rowdy as fuck. Not all the
Yeah.
time, but there's some little short, 5 foot something dudes that got the mentality of a, 6'5", 250 pound dude
Yep.
that works out every day. And
Yep.
they're only like 5'5", some shit. So it's
Yep.
just it's that shit don't really matter. Besides, I see what you mean though, because you were probably thinking like, oh, these guys work out and what's
Yep.
gonna be like, and you know what I mean. Did you work
Yep.
out a lot?
I mean, I wrestled when I was younger.
That helps, yeah.
So, I mean, I was never a big dude by any means. Back then, I mean, I would like to say, I mean, I had a decent cut, but I mean, I've never been a big dude.
Right.
The whole time I worked there, I bet I was 135 pounds soaking wet.
Like an
I mean,
athletic kind of build, huh?
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
got like a now I'm starting to kind of get when you said how tall you are and with the weight and everything. I see what you mean when you're saying you felt like the odds, but there ain't nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that. I'm just saying you
Yeah.
went in there feeling like people might look at you like, oh, this dude's little dude or something. You know what I
Right.
mean? But a lot of
Yeah.
inmates know that don't mean nothing. Like,
Yeah.
trust me when I say more of the inmates than you realize that wasn't even crossing their mind because they've already seen little dudes put in some fucking crazy
Oh,
work and
yeah,
shit. You know what I mean?
for
So
sure.
that's a
Yep.
case by case basis.
Yeah. Yeah. I could
So
definitely see that.
what you got going on now in your life? If it ain't personal, if you don't
Um,
mind me asking.
yeah. So, man, really, I moved around. I moved out of state shortly after I resigned.
Okay,
I ended up going to a machine trade school. I got into a
okay,
trade. Man, I'm
oh yeah,
making a hell of a lot more money than I was. That's for
I
sure.
bet. Good.
And man, honestly, I'm way happier now. I don't regret the choice that I made to go and do it. As far as working in the prison system, but it's something that like it's not even on my radar, to ever go do again for sure.
Right. It was just an
But
experience.
yeah, yeah, for
That's
sure. It
cool.
was
Now,
it
what if
was
you could have been able to be in law enforcement? You would have wanted to do that.
man, honestly, after working in the prison system, the hours, and just everything that comes with it, the stress of the job and everything.
Right.
It just, I was well aware that I wasn't, it takes a certain person to do that job. And it was very apparent to me that I was not that person.
Hey, I respect it. You tried it. You figured that out, and now it's a box checked off in your life, and you're like, just
Yep.
move on.
Yep.
I get it. I see what you mean. So you're making more money. You're happy, but did you say you moved out of state, or did you come back?
Yeah. So I moved to Southern Tennessee for 4 years. And
Okay.
then I came back in 21. And then, yep. Yep.
Hell
I'm
yeah.
right back where I was at.
Man, I would love to get my family out of here. I was in Alabama in 2009, Tuscaloosa. I absolutely loved it. I didn't want to come back, and
Yep.
I did. Stuck in Ohio, did that 7 years. Me and her got our own house, which is cool, but I just want to get out of Ohio, bro. I live in the hood and it sucks, and I just would like to be in the country somewhere. So,
Yeah.
like, even if it's still Ohio, but in the country somewhere. But I would prefer, like, maybe Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Texas, something like that.
Yeah. For sure.
If I could. What was it like down there? You like Tennessee?
Man, it was a small town. We were about a mile from Mississippi, about 5 miles from Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Man, it was a small little hole in the wall town. Not a whole lot went on, and it was a nice change of pace, but there was just no money to be made. And ultimately, we
Really?
really the cost of living was like a fraction of what it is here. But
No
it
jobs?
just yeah, I mean, it being such a small town, there's jobs. But I
Right.
mean,
I
it's
get it.
jobs that, you're gonna work your ass off for $12 an hour.
Yeah.
And there's just, there's there's not a future in that, at least for me. And ultimately I made the choice to come back and, the rest of my family did too, so that was pretty cool. But but yeah, yes, sir.
Hey, I want to apologize to you or anybody seeing this, man. This was I did this last summer. I haven't been able to figure it out. We tried this. I appreciate you for doing this, and this was cool to
Absolutely.
get to meet you, learn about
Yeah.
stuff. I just wanted to more or less say that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, bro. Is what I'm
Yeah,
saying. You know
no,
what I'm
no,
saying?
it's good, man. It's
You
good.
think we did all right?
Yeah, for sure.
All
Yeah.
right, cool. Because you're my first CO I ever brought on. I brought on Jacob Gentry last Tennessee. We did that, last Tennessee. Jacob Gentry from Tennessee last summer. We did that, and then I just did that live with Bravo Bands from. He was at Lebanon when I was there, but we only did a live session. So technically, this is my first interview, and I'm going to start doing them from this point forward. So anybody seeing this, uh, me and Zach right here, this was like our intro to the fact that we can do this. We
Mhm.
just wung it, you know. You see, we
Right.
got what we got, you know. So and then get a hold of me if anyone's interested. You too, if you ever want to do this again, or any
Yeah, for
type
sure,
of
man. I'd
follow
definitely
up
do
or
it again.
something.
I'm actually, there was a guy that he was an inmate on the B side, um, and he ended up getting released probably 3 months before I resigned. His name's Corey Reynolds. Super cool dude, man. I've
Okay.
always been a car guy my whole life. That's what my family does.
Okay.
Corey
Cool.
was, he's also a big car guy, and man, just out of the blue, probably 2, 3 months after I resigned, he came up on people you may know on Facebook, and I think he
Mm-hmm.
friended me, and I was bullshit with him back and forth, and he's living in Cincinnati, doing good. I talk to him every now and then, man. I would consider him a friend of mine, and
That's cool, man. Yeah.
I could probably hook you up with him, if
And
you'd be interested in
for an
talking to
interview.
him. Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
cool. I know you said you weren't very worried about the traction thing, so I left that up to you. But anyone
Yeah.
seeing this, I'm giving y'all the option to obviously said his name. You could
Hmm.
do that, or you could be anonymous, and then you can also take it to the next step and tell me you want me to link your socials. If you want to try to gain a following, if you want to try to be committed in post prison content, CO content, whatever, this could be your chance or your doorway. Or you could say, I don't want to do that like he did. And, so them are your options. Just your name, anonymous, or actually show all your socials so everybody knows. Cool, man. So I know it's kind of late and people don't
Yeah.
realize that we just did this at like 11 to 11 to what time? How long we been on here, man?
Let's see, does this say? I don't
Don't
know.
say.
It's about 11:40. So yeah, it's probably been solid 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes.
I was gonna say I think we started yeah, I don't know. All right, cool, man. I'm gonna get a hold of you. Unless you
Mhm.
got anything else you want to talk about or bring up,
No, I
Keith.
mean, I think we hit all the high points. We'll definitely do it again for
If
sure.
you want, I was gonna
We can
say
go
we could do
deeper
a
in.
follow up
Yeah, for sure.
and think about it ahead of time. Me too,
Right.
bro. Because I just won this. I should have sat
Yeah.
down and said, I'm gonna ask him this. You know what I mean? I just
Yeah.
threw myself in there, and so we'll do it again. We'll talk beforehand and be like, and
That's
I'll
cool.
do some story times too. We'll
Mhm.
compare from an inmate's point of view to a CO's point of view, and you could be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, if I was in that situation, this or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Something
Yes,
for
sir.
him to check out some content.
Hell yeah.
I appreciate you, Zach. Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
for sure, man.
Have a good night, man.
Yes, sir, buddy. You as well.
You too. All right, everybody. Until tomorrow, stay safe, stay free, stay blessed.